Lavra always seemed to move in a blur of motion, a whirlwind of chores and quiet sighs. Mornings were her battlefield. The clatter of pans, the scent of coffee brewing, the rhythmic packing of lunches. It was a symphony of sacrifice I'd grown up with. She'd been a single mom my whole life, and the weight of it had etched fine lines around her eyes, lines I traced in my memory even when I wasn't looking at her. She never complained, not really. But sometimes, in the quiet moments after dinner, I'd see her staring out the window, a far-off look in her eyes, as if she were watching a life that wasn't hers drift by. One rainy Tuesday, I found it, tucked away in a dusty shoebox in the attic, nestled between my old report cards and a lock of my baby hair, was a stack of letters. They were written on faded, cream-colored paper, the ink a soft blue. The handwriting was elegant, a man's script, and every letter began the same way. My dearest Lavra. My heart hammered against my ribs. I knew I shouldn't, but I read one, and then another. They told a story I never knew. A story of two young people, full of dreams, hopelessly in love. They talked about meeting at a small-town fair, about sharing a cinnamon roll that was big as a dinner plate, and about promising to travel the world together. The man's name was Daniel. He wrote about his family's pressure to move away for a business opportunity, a move he was fighting against. The last letter was dated just a few months before I was born. It was filled with desperation, a plea for her to wait for him, a promise that he would be back. There were no more letters after that. A cold realization washed over me. This wasn't just a forgotten boyfriend. This was the ghost that haunted my mother's quiet moments. This was the what if that flickered in her eyes. I looked at my mom later that day, truly looked at her, and saw not just the tired woman who worked 2 jobs, but the girl in those letters, the one who dreamed of Paris and laughed over a cinnamon roll. And I knew I had to do something. Finding Daniel was easier and harder than I expected. The internet is a strange and wonderful thing. A few searches based on the details from the letters led me to a Daniel Peterson who owned a small architectural firm a few states over. His company's About US page had a photo. The eyes were the same ones I imagined writing those letters, though now they held the wisdom and weariness of 2 decades. The hard part was my own hesitation. Was I meddling in something I had no right to? Was I opening a wound that had long since scarred over? I thought about my mom, about the silent weight she carried. She deserved a chance to close this chapter one way or another. So I took a deep breath and sent an email. I kept it simple. Are you the Daniel who knew Lavra Collins from Millwood 22 years ago? His reply came less than an hour later. Yes, is she okay? 3 simple words, but they were heavy with years of unspoken worry. My hands trembled as I typed back. I told him she was okay, that she was a wonderful mother, and that I was her son, Ethan. I told him I'd found his letters. I didn't ask him to come. I didn't demand an explanation. I just told him a little bit about her life, about how strong she was. Then I attached a recent picture of her, smiling as she worked in her garden, the sunlight catching the silver in her hair. We exchanged a few more emails. He told me his side of the story. His family had intercepted her letters to him after he moved. They'd told him she'd moved on, that she'd met someone else. He was heartbroken, and eventually he tried to build a new life. He'd never married. He said he'd searched for her over the years, but Laura Collins was a common name. And with no social media presence, she was a ghost. He never stopped wondering. He never stopped loving her. That's when the plan began to form in my mind. It was a crazy, audacious plan, but it felt right. I told Daniel about our little morning routine, about the local bakery that made cinnamon rolls almost as big as the one he described in his letter. I told him to come on a specific Saturday. I told him which coffee shop and what time. I just said, be there. I'll take care of the rest. That Saturday morning, the air was thick with anticipation. I woke up extra early. Mom, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, Let's do something different today. Let's go out for breakfast, my treat. To that little bakery you like? She looked surprised. Mornings were for productivity, not leisure. But she saw the earnestness in my eyes, and finally, a tired smile touched her lips. Okay, sweetie, let me just get dressed. The drive to the bakery was quiet. I could feel her exhaustion, a familiar presence in the passenger seat. When we walked in, the aroma of cinnamon and sugar wrapped around us like a warm hug. The place was mostly empty, bathed in the soft morning light. I led her to a small table by the window, the one I had told Daniel about. As we sat down, my heart felt like it was going to beat its way out of my chest. I'll go order, I said, my voice cracking slightly. 2 coffees and 2 giant cinnamon rolls, right? She nodded, her gaze already drifting toward the window, that familiar, far-off look returning. I walked to the counter, my eyes fixed on the front door, and then it opened. He looked older, of course. His hair was more salt than pepper, and he had the same kind of tired lines around his eyes as my mother. But it was him, Daniel. He scanned the room, his eyes landing on our table, on the back of my mother's head. He took a hesitant step forward, his hands clutching a small, worn, leather-bound book. I paid for the order and walked slowly back to the table, my hands shaking so much I almost dropped the tray. "Mom," I said softly. She turned from the window, a question in her eyes. And then she saw him standing just a few feet away. The world seemed to stop. The quiet murmur of the coffee shop, the clinking of spoons, the gentle hiss of the espresso machine, it all faded into a dull hum. Laura's face went through 1,000 emotions in a heartbeat. Shock, confusion, disbelief, and then a fragile, trembling recognition. The cup in her hand clattered against the saucer. "Daniel?" she whispered, her voice a ghost of a sound I'd never heard before. He took another step closer, his own eyes shining with unshed tears. "Lavra," he said, and his voice was thick with 22 years of silence. "I got your letters." He held up the worn book. "All of them." I never stopped reading them. My mother's hands flew to her mouth, a sob catching in her throat. The carefully constructed walls she had built around her heart for 2 decades crumbled into dust. I placed the coffees and the 2 giant cinnamon rolls on the table, right between them. "I think you two have a lot to talk about," I said, my own voice choked with emotion. I squeezed my mom's shoulder, and for the first time, she looked at me, really looked at me, with an expression of such profound love and gratitude that it took my breath away. I backed away, leaving them in their bubble of rediscovered time. I sat at the counter, sipping a coffee I didn't taste, watching them from a distance. I saw them talk, hesitantly at first, then with a growing flood of words. I saw them laugh through their tears. I saw him reach across the table and gently take her hand. I saw the weariness fall from my mother's shoulders, replaced by a light I hadn't seen since I was a little boy. She wasn't just my tired, hardworking mom anymore. She was Lavra again. The girl who dreamed of Paris, the girl who fell in love at a small-town fair, the girl who finally got her second chance, all over a cup of coffee and a cinnamon roll on a quiet Saturday morning. And I knew in that moment that I had finally given her back a piece of the world she had given up for me.